Hey folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. I'm Deneen Borelli and Dr. Tom Borelli is in the house, bringing you the truth in black and white. So folks, today, liar in chief, the top Joe Biden lies. Lies. Oh my goodness. So there was a reason why Biden's handlers had him campaign from his basement during the 2020 presidential election. There was a reason, folks, and now we know why. A, he can't stay on message, but B, the man lies a lot. The more President Biden speaks, it shows he's not only clueless, but is a pathological liar. So not only are Americans watching Biden who can't be trusted as long as our allies, they're watching as well. But what about our adversaries? They're watching too. Americans are taking note, folks. So in this episode of Reigniting Liberty, we will call out President Biden on his lies. Not enough time to do so, but we're going to pack in as much as we can. We're also going to call out those who are covering for him. Not enough time to cover them as well, but we're going to do our best. And also all of the consequences of Biden's lies, Dr. Tom. So in no certain order, here we go.
Right from the very top, Joe Biden lied about his son Hunter and his business dealings. Joe Biden lied about Hunter's business dealings. That's the headline. Hunter's laptop shows, boy, does it show. It shows a lot. It shows photos that you really don't want to look at with drugs and with nude shots and with prostitutes and with drugs, all of it in the laptop. Hunter Biden has many issues. Hopefully he's recovered from his drug addiction, but all that was very apparent in his laptop. But the most concerning aspect from the laptop was all the information, the notes, the documents, the communication about Hunter Biden's business dealings. And those business dealings also implicate not only his business partners, but his father, Joe Biden. Joe Biden.
Big guy.
The big guy. 10% for the big guy, I think it was called somewhere in there. Gee, I wonder what the 10% was. Yes, taking care of the big guy was part of Hunter Biden's business dealings. No doubt about it. And it is deeply concerning because there were huge sums of money flowing to Hunter Biden and family members, including the big guy, who would be called Joe Biden. There are serious allegations and questions surrounding Hunter's global business dealings with many countries that people know and should be concerned about. Let's start with Ukraine, Russia, and China. Hunter Biden had business dealings with all three of those countries. Biden was confronted when he was campaigning in the presidential election in 2020. He was asked about his son Hunter's business dealings and did he know about them? Well, candidate Joe Biden denied knowing anything about Hunter's business deals, and he denied any knowledge of Hunter's business associates. Denied it. He even said he never even met Hunter Biden's business partners.
They never discussed any of it.
No, none of it. Never happened. Well, here are a couple of sound clips that show that Joe Biden actually knew a lot about the business partners and Hunter Biden's business deals.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
Excuse me, there is a photo of you golfing with your son Hunter and his business partner Devin Archer. Do you stand by your statement that you did not discuss any of your son's overseas business?
Yes, I stand by that statement.
Well, according to these headlines, there's no doubt Joe Biden lied. Joe Biden met with at least 14, that is 14 of Hunter Biden's business associates while he was vice president. While he was vice president. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
He was the vice president and he was meeting with Hunter's business associates and I believe some of his clients.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then there are the photos. Here are a couple of them. This one is from a New York Post story in 2020. And this one is from a Fox News story in 2019. And that's not all. Hunter Biden's former business partner, Tony Bobulinski, also implicated Joe Biden in the business deals, and he also exposes that Joe Biden lied.
Good evening. My name is Tony Bobulinski. I served as a lieutenant in the United States Navy with high security clearance. I'm making this statement to set the record straight about the involvement of the Biden family, Vice President Biden, his brother Jim Biden, and his son Hunter Biden in dealings with the Chinese. I have heard Joe Biden say that he's never discussed business with Hunter. That is false. I have firsthand knowledge about this because I directly dealt with the Biden family, including Joe Biden.
Now, of course, Joe Biden got away with all of this because of the Democrat advocacy media. I don't call them Main Street media. I call them the Democrat advocacy media because they operate like a public relations firm for the Democrats and for Joe Biden. And
True.
they suppressed anything to do with Hunter Biden's laptop before the election, the October before the election in 2020. We have to give a shout out to the New York Post because they were actually doing journalism. And one of their employees, Miranda Devine, has done an outstanding job with respect to exposing Hunter Biden and all the information contained in his laptop. In fact, Miranda wrote a book called The Laptop from Hell, which describes the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop that implicates all the Bidens, or what's called sometimes Biden Inc., or sometimes referred to Biden, the crime family. There's also questions in terms of the family. It's not a mafia family per se, because they're not Italian, but that is.
He might have said they were, though. Who knows?
He's Puerto Rican, so he might as well be. He could be Italian.
Right.
Whatever day it is, he could be it because after all, he is Joe Biden.
Yep.
But there were also questions surrounding Joe Biden's brother, James, involved in these business deals. What a racket, Deneen, what a racket.
Yeah, I tell you. And there's also another brother named Francis. I think he goes by Frank. I haven't heard all that much about him. And there's also a sister, Valerie. So who knows?
Too many Bidens for me. I don't know.
Who knows what this family tree has been involved in. But we continue. Up next is Biden lied about asking Saudi Arabia not to cut oil production. Now, earlier this year, Biden traveled to Saudi Arabia, all the way over to Saudi Arabia to grovel for more oil production while he does everything he can to stop production here in the U.S., here in America. And Biden says, however, that wasn't about oil, his trip. That's not why he went there. Take a listen.
By the way, let's get straight why I went. I didn't go to one about oil. I went about making sure that we made sure that we weren't going to walk away from the Middle East.
Right, right. Well, there's this headline, Dr. Tom, from the Wall Street Journal. Saudi Arabia defied U.S. warnings ahead of OPEC Plus production cut. And also, there is no doubt Biden was worried about production cuts hurting Democrats during the midterm elections. Well, this is from CNN. Inside the White House's failed effort to dissuade OPEC from cutting oil production to avoid a total disaster. Now, in this episode shows the motivation for Biden's lies because they did everything to stop production cuts recently. So Biden was not going to ask them about oil while he was there with the crown prince.
Right.
Really?
Sure.
Okay. Well, now Americans, unfortunately, we are seeing an uptick in gasoline prices. Prices are creeping up across the country. And the last thing Democrats want as we are closing into the final stretch of the midterm elections are higher gas prices. So while we were putting this show together, this happened. This is from Zero Hedge. Quid pro no. Saudi Arabia says U.S. asked for oil cut delay until after midterms. And this is from that story. Quote, in a scorching Wednesday letter, the kingdom rejected White House criticism of OPEC Plus's decision to cut oil production and confirmed that the Biden administration attempted to coerce them into postponing the cuts until after midterms, end quote. Wow, they got called out by Saudi Arabia, Dr. Tom.
Yeah, how about that being fact-checked?
Right?
By Saudi Arabia. You know, the New York Times is not going to do the fact checking. So a foreign country had to do that to set the record straight. And don't forget, Biden is now, and some of the Democrats are threatening to cut military aid to Saudi Arabia. This is all Democrat politics. If Democrats and Biden really cared about oil prices, Deneen, what would they be doing? They would be drilling at home.
That's right.
But they made themselves dependent on OPEC Plus. So now Biden is paying the price. Actually, we're all paying the price because we are the ones, the American people, have to pay the price of the high gasoline prices and high home heating oil as winter approaches. But it is kind of funny, the fact that Saudi Arabia had to do the fact check on Biden. I don't think they like the man. Remember, they wouldn't even take his phone calls earlier in the administration. So that tells you something. How to influence friends, right? Whatever that saying is. Yeah, unbelievable. Well, the lies keep coming. Don't worry about that. We'll move on from oil and Saudi Arabia and from Hunter Biden. Now we talk about the economy. Recently, Biden was on CNN with host Jake Tapper and was asked if the American people are in a recession.
Should the American people prepare for a recession?
No. Look, they've been saying this now. How every 6 months they say this. Every 6 months they look down the next 6 months and see what's going to happen. It hadn't happened yet. It hadn't. There's no guarantee that they're going to be. I don't think there will be a recession. If it is, it'll be a very slight recession. That is, we'll move down slightly.
Joe Biden responds, as we just heard, a slight recession. It's like a slight fever. Your temperature is only slightly high. Well, look, Biden obviously doesn't want to admit we're in a recession. And as we know, the classic definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters with declining economic growth. But not according to Joe Biden. Of course, he doesn't want to admit that because the election's coming and all the headlines would say, Biden finally admits it's a recession. So it may only be a slight recession, a little slight fever for our economy.
A slight gaping wound Yeah.
Right, exactly. Clearly, Biden did not want to admit that we're in a recession because the election is now only a few weeks away. So again, no headlines on that. But meanwhile, the Americans are seeing up close and personal the bad economy that we are currently living in. And there's no doubt every American is far worse off since Biden took office with respect to the economy. But of course, Biden is full denial of the economic reality of which we live in. Biden also said what he was thinking out loud about inflation, and then what happens? He fumbled his notes.
Brother.
Fumble, that didn't need to throw the penalty flag. He wasn't
He
even
threw it
hit.
himself.
He wasn't even hit by a cornerback when he caught the notes. No, he just dropped them. He just fumbled. Fumbleina, as we used to say in football. You carry the ball, you drop it a few times, you're called fumbleina. So now we have Biden fumbleina with his notes.
We passed so much legislation that significantly makes a point about, for example, the American Rescue Plan, the legislation to deal with inflation, the Inflation Act.
And let's look at inflation. Inflation is on the top of the minds of the American people. According to Rasmussen reports, 30% of likely U.S. voters think the country is heading in the right direction. Only 30% think the country is going in the right direction. Hint, hint, the vast majority don't. Joe Biden. 89% of likely voters are concerned about inflation, including 64% who are very concerned. 64% of the American people are very concerned about inflation. Maybe that's why Biden dropped the pages.
Trying to deflect attention.
He can only deny so much before a little Freudian slip, shall we say? This was a Freudian slip of the notes.
Well, Dr. Tom, of course, the media plays right along with Biden's lies. So this is from the New York Times headline. Biden, storyteller in chief, spins yarns that often unravel. Wow. Sounds warm and fuzzy, right? Well,
yarns, right? Grandma
yarns.
Knitting is sewing, right?
Right. Only thing missing was the rocking chair and him holding a pipe. Yeah. Norman Rockwell visions here. Well, this was about Biden speaking while he was in Florida after Hurricane Ian, when he said this happened 15 years ago. Quote, "We didn't lose our whole home, but lightning struck and we lost an awful lot of it." And there was this, Dr. Tom, another time Biden mentioned this, saying, quote, "He had a house burned down with my wife in it," end quote. Boy. And while talking about Hurricane Ian, Dr. Tom, and the devastation in Puerto Rico, Biden said he had been raised in a Puerto Rican community at home politically. Oh, it just keeps coming. No matter what the topic or the concern or the issue is, the man just exaggerates and lies. The New York Times was criticized for trivializing Biden's lies and spinning tales. But if it's someone else and not Biden, they're lying. If this is the New York Times reporting about it, Dr. Tom. Wow. Well, this Fox News headline, quote, "New York Times mocked for euphemism-stuffed report on Biden falsehoods. Folklore, factual edges shaved off." So the New York Times got called out, Dr. Tom, and as they should be called out.
Of course. Well, they're doing what they always do, right? They're just clean up aisle 5. It's Joe Biden. Well, we know he's getting a lot of bad news lately about his lying. So let's redefine lying as exaggerations and tale telling or whatever else they use, right? Let's put a little shiny coat of paint on it and it'll make people feel better. No, the man is a stone cold liar.
Yes,
It's
he
as simple as
is.
that.
Yep. And there are many other examples of Biden lying, and only a Democrat politician like Biden can get away with so many lies throughout his career. He's been involved in politics for decades. And in any other career, Dr. Tom, you would be fired for lying. Investment advisor, Dr. Tom, fired, right?
Fired, out of here.
CEO of a
And if not, lose their
corporation.
license as well, right? You can't
Yeah.
misrepresent a financial product. You can't lie to a client or a potential client.
Nope.
You get not only fired from whatever firm you'd be working for, you would lose your license to
Right.
sell financial products. So there's a penalty for those people, but not for politicians, and especially not for Joe Biden.
How about a CEO of a corporation?
Yeah, they could try to lie, but shareholders will take care of that pretty quick, and so will the stock price.
Yeah, right. Or, hey, an employee of any company. What about that?
Yeah, right. We know, right? Listen, the only thing you really have in life is your own credibility, right? Whether you're
Yes.
working in a financial product or whatever you're doing, you're working as an employee. The only thing you really have is your own credibility. That when you say something, people believe you.
Sure.
Even in a marriage, in a relationship, right, Deneen?
Absolutely.
I
Tom?
didn't go to that club late at night.
Tom, I'm watching you.
Yeah. No, it's all relationships, whether it be business or personal, rely on factual information and credibility.
No, absolutely.
Well, Deneen, when you really boil it down, it really is a sad commentary on Americans. When you really boil it down, it's a sad commentary that someone like Biden can lie throughout the decades, through all the decades, and then he becomes the president of the United States. I mean, could you imagine raising a child these days and telling your child you shouldn't lie because you will not be deemed credible going forward in the rest of your life? And the kid comes back and says, well, Joe Biden lies, and look, he's the president of the United States. It is a sad and commentary that Biden was able to move up the ranks by being such a serial liar. It's really a sad commentary on our entire system. Unbelievable. Of course, he got away with this because the media, especially this time, during this recent election cycle a couple of years ago, let him completely off the hook. But what I find most interesting, Deneen, is that Biden had to quit his first presidential run in 1988. You know why? Because he was caught and pinned as a liar, pinned, cheating, exaggerating his school record, his academic credentials, plagiarism, all of it. And because of that, he had to quit his campaign back in 1988.
Wow.
Fast forward to 2019, 2020, what happened to that media? What happened to the media that used to hold individuals accountable? They totally disappeared. They became an advocacy group, as we discussed before, an advocacy group for Democrats, progressive Democrats, and for Biden. That's why we have President Biden, because the media covered everything up for him. Another big problem, really, with all of this is the fact that, as we mentioned before, if a person is a known liar, they will not be believed. So the American people have lost faith, at least many of them, in President Biden. And then on the international stage, our allies certainly can't believe him,
Nope.
for sure. And our adversaries can't believe him because you don't know what's he going to say. Look at the issue you just mentioned about Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
He comes back and says, hey, I never told Saudi Arabia that I wanted to pump more oil. Then in the back channels, the administration is begging them to not do those production cuts. And then Saudi Arabia had to do the fact check on him. No one believes the man. That makes him a dangerous person and makes the world dangerous as well. And keep in mind, we only covered a number of
A
his
sliver.
lies,
Yes.
but it certainly wasn't the full deal. Maybe next time we'll rank order them and, the top 2020 or top 2022 lies of Joe Biden. We could do it in sequence. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, Biden is a liar. He keeps doing it. The United States has lost all credibility in the world, and Biden has lost credibility with many Americans.
Oh, so true. Well, folks, thanks for checking out Reigniting Liberty. And remember, everyone has a role to play. What are you doing for liberty? Until next time.